Good morning. Oh, good response. That's great. Good start. My name is Rudy Sanchez. I am currently the interim associate provost for faculty affairs. I have to get used to saying that because that job started about 3 weeks ago for me. So I was previously the director for academic technology and innovation at Fresno State, which is why I'm in front of you today. So I'm going to share with you over the next half hour or so some of the high points and lessons learned of a tablet initiative that we developed at Fresno State, mirroring many programs around the world and the country. I also think we have some unique things about the program. So before we get started, a couple of things. One, I'll be using today's meet as kind of a little back channel and maybe a place to park questions and comments. So we'll have live Q&A as well. But if you have other things you want to ask, please feel free to use today's meet. I'll show this link a couple times throughout the course of the next 30 minutes so you can have access to it. I'll answer all questions and respond to all comments before the week's over. So again, if you have things that occur to you after the session, feel free to use that link to post questions there. The other thing is I want to get some sense of who's in the room. So how many faculty members do I have in the room? A few of you, okay. So up until 3 weeks ago, I was a faculty member too. So I can resonate with our experience. How many administrator types in the room? Okay, and then lots of staff, I assume, in terms of other things. Okay. How many of you have or are thinking about some kind of mobile device initiative on your campus? Everybody. How many of you actually have something on your campus already? Oh, quite a few. Okay, good. So I think, again, obviously I have my perspective on what our campus is doing, but I hope that we can inform the dialogue with your experiences as well as we move through the next 40 minutes or so. But before we get started with the DISCOVERe program, which is how we branded our tablet initiative, what I want to do is share with you some context about Fresno and Fresno State, where we're at in the state, and what our students are like. This is the Fresno State Jazz Band. So just to give you some context in terms of where we're at and what our students are like, love the jazz band. They should be done. There they go. The good news, the graduation rate figure there is about 52.4%, I think was the number. That was from our last iteration of data analysis. We think we have signs that when the next numbers come out for the last academic year, that number will be around 56, 57%. So that's good news. We're on an upward trajectory in terms of the graduation rate. but it gives you some sense of our student population and what we have on our campus. And I think that in and of itself is a little bit unique in terms of where we're situated in the students that we serve. So what our roadmap for today is pretty simple. Just want to share quickly some background information about Discovery, kind of some strategic decisions we made at the front end that drove actual implementation and continue to do that. Share with you a little bit about the faculty experience, the student experience, and then some outcomes. So really just kind of give you a sense of what this was about in our journey. So this is the little graphic for our timeline. We got a new president after 22 years, 2 years ago. Actually, almost exactly 2 years ago. August, he came in July. That August of 2013, I went out to my driveway to pick up the Fresno Bee, our local paper. Opened it up, and above the fold was the headline, Fresno State President wants tablets in students' hands. And immediately I knew there was going to be a lot of work to be done that day, right? So when I got to campus, pulled the team together, we instructional design team, our LMS team, some associated folks, colleagues in IT services and classroom video services, and said, okay, this looks like this is happening. Now what are we going to do about it, right? So these are just some of the kind of markers. So from an idea in August of 13 to recruiting faculty in November of that year for what we did not exactly know, but we got faculty to get on board anyway. And then started out with development with that group of faculty, about 40, beginning that spring, and then the following fall, we implemented. So it was a very fast rollout. In the fall, we started, last fall we had about 23 faculty offering about 40 sections, impacting about 1,000 student seats. So that was last fall. To give you a preview of what's happening this fall, about 120 faculty, 130 faculty, over 200 sections, and impacting 5,000 student seats. So things have ramped up considerably over the last year, and considering we started at 0 in 13 to go to 5,000 student seats in 2 years is pretty rapid. So what's unique about Fresno State? I think the Discovery program in particular, I think there are a couple of things. First of all, we made the decision as a campus to house this in academic affairs. So while kind of the technology is enabling, it's really not the driver, it's really not the centerpiece. The centerpiece is about the academic curriculum and how we interface with students and change the teaching learning nexus. Because it was in academic affairs, that's where we focused. We focused on faculty, we focused on training faculty to have the day-to-day interactions differently with their students in the classroom, leveraging the technology. It happens that when you do that, then you begin to kind of impact other parts of the teaching learning interface, but that was really what we were about. So academic affairs, teaching learning focused, and then the last thing that I think is probably unique about us is that we're cross-platform, which may be why many of you are in the room. January 14, so when we first started out on this thing, I have one of my colleagues, Shar, in the back of the room. When I would go to conferences and tell colleagues, we're doing this and we're going to go cross-platform, they basically looked at me like, are you crazy? What do you think you're doing? Because it is challenging. It certainly is challenging, and we certainly had our bumps along the way. But like Beth Porter said yesterday with edX, they're mobile, right? They're mobile first, but mobile first, browser-based. We believe, and we still believe, that that's the direction everything is headed. So the platform will matter less and less over time is our bet. The other thing that led us to go in this direction, the general marketplace, and in particular the marketplace in our immediate vicinity. So we have several school districts, community college districts that have tablet mobile types of initiatives. Very few of them are Apple, which is usually kind of the default place people go with this. Large school districts in our area are Windows-based or Android-based. So we knew that our students were going to be coming with different kinds of experiences. We also had faculty express great concern over choosing a platform. On our campus, schools, in the engineering school, the ag school, which is highly technical, and the business school, not Apple-friendly. They really wanted something else. Other schools were Apple-friendly. So to go with one platform would immediately cut out a large swath of our campus. So by going cross-platform, we're able to recruit faculty from a variety of places around campus, and I think make it a much more rich experience. Again, drawbacks, and I'll talk about some of those things in a few minutes. In one sentence, this is what we really were trying to do. Transform that learning process, right? So there's a lot of conversation, a lot of literature now on the flipped learning and how you do that. People are trying to move from the sage on the stage to the guide on the side and all those kinds of things. But this is a way that you can actually facilitate that if faculty understand what they can do and if students are willing to participate in that process. So what we're really trying to do is impact student success. And we can have a long conversation about what that actually means, and when we do on our campus in terms of when faculty come and go through that developmental process of how to transform their courses, we talk about what they think student success is for their course. So we help them along that journey, partly because we want them to understand there's an end goal in mind, and also for assessment purposes. And I'll talk a little bit more about assessment when we get to outcomes here. But I think this is really what we're trying to do, and trying to engage students in a different kind of way, leveraging the technology that we have. You see I have the word tablets in this sentence. It's really not about the tablet, right? All of you who have programs, you know it's not about the device. If it's about the device, we are in a world of hurt, because the next thing that comes out, we have to jump over there. So it really is about, from my perspective, really about capacity building. And I'll share with you how we do that with faculty in a few minutes here. So the faculty experience, I just want to share with you kind of what our faculty go through. We have a combination of things that we do. So we start off with faculty and learning communities, which are basically spaced out meetings over the course of a semester. The first group of faculty had, in the spring of 14, had about 8 two-hour sessions where they learned, they helped us learn. We figured out what we're going to do with this program over the course of that semester. And then there's a one-week intensive institute where we have faculty go through with our instructional design team, our technical crew, classroom video services, all of that, designed to do a couple of things. One is to help them learn what tools are available and move along that path to transforming their courses. The key outcome, though, for me, and I think faculty, in retrospect, when we look at the reflections, the key thing is for faculty to become comfortable with the technology, comfortable with failure, and comfortable with asking students for help, because that's how we grow this in a sustainable way. There's really no way for an individual faculty member who's not trained in instructional technology to keep up with everything that's going to happen. But if we can build the capacity for faculty to move along as technology moves, then we have something that's sustainable. And again, moving students into that learning process for everybody is very helpful. So I know you can't read this, so if you Google Bloom's taxonomy and tablet pedagogy, you'll find a whole bunch of images like this. And basically what it is different apps that potentially ping on different pieces of Bloom's taxonomy, all right? It's just how you execute, how you implement these things. So again, academic-based, trying to look at teaching and learning nexus, therefore pedagogy is what drives everything. So it doesn't really matter what the app is, it matters what you want the outcome to be. And then go find a way to make it happen. Because the apps will change, as you know, very quickly. Some things will disappear tomorrow, something else will replace it. So the app itself and the tablet itself is not necessarily the key thing here. If you're familiar with the SAMR model, that's this representation here, this is well liked by the Apple folks, but it is generic, so there's nothing Apple-centric about it necessarily. It really is just another way to look at how we look at course redesign with technology. And again, it doesn't really matter what the technology is. So again, a way for us to look at from simple substitution to complete redefinition. And I will tell you right now that our experience in our campus, even with just 40 faculty, and I know it's going to be more true with 150 faculty, that there's wide variance in terms of what faculty do. Wide variance in terms of their commitment to making this work, and wide variance in the student experience. But ultimately, from my perspective, and I share this with faculty when I visit with them, it's really mostly or maybe all about the faculty person. If they can make it work, the students will have a really good experience. But if they don't, it's very problematic for students and for the faculty member. They don't have a good experience either. So again, pedagogy-based, and then figuring out what we want to do within the framework of the faculty member and their courses and their students. Apps is always something people talk about because one of the ways that you leverage the mobile technology is through apps. And again, I think this is kind of a stopping point on our journey in this area. Most of the things that you see on the screen, actually all the things you see on the screen, because we're cross-platform, the apps have to be cross-platform. So the good news, bad news is this. If you're an Apple fan, you know there are millions of apps, most of which do nothing for you, right? But you have lots of choices, and they work very well within the Apple ecosystem. If you're cross-platform, that number of apps narrows dramatically. So the things that a faculty member might go to a conference and say, oh, there's this great app that I saw that does exactly what I wanted to do in terms of collaboration with students. Our question first is it cross-platform? And usually the answer is no. And then we say, so what else can we do to help you do what you want to do that's cross-platform? So narrow field in terms of what's actually available, but that helps faculty in terms of making decisions. So when there's so much out there, you really don't know where to go. When you narrow it down, it becomes a little more easy. So again, just a sense of where we're at here. One of the reasons we have to build capacity as opposed to simply train on an app to do a certain thing in a certain platform is because you multiply the platforms by the number of apps and you have lots of permutations. And we can't control who updates when and what goes away when. So one of the things we have to make sure faculty understand is, yes, that great new update that's coming next month, download it if you wish. Your students are certainly going to do it. Test out everything again, right? It will help you do that as an instructional design team, as a support team, but you have to test it out again because you don't know what's going to happen. So again, it gets very complicated, but we have to build in that capacity, that attitude that things are going to change, and they have to be flexible in terms of how I approach this. And my students have to be as well. So I mentioned capacity building several times now. So one of the things that we key on in terms of how we set up our faculty development around tablets is around innovation. So this is a graph I'm going to credit Two Revolutions. It's a higher ed innovation organization that helps lots of entities out in terms of innovation implementation. But if you're familiar with innovation at all, this is not anything that's radically different, right? It's a pretty simple model of innovation. But what we actually do with our faculty is walk them through this process without using all the words. Because we talk about course redesign, we talk about, here's exposure to an app, work with it for 10, 15 minutes, what do you think? Go, explore more, stop. Which is basically fast prototyping. That's all we're doing. And we're doing it over and over and over and over again. In the learning communities and also during that week-long institute. So they don't know they're involved in that process until at the end we come back and say, and here's what we've been doing for 60 hours of contact time with you. And here's what you've been doing over the course of several weeks now. But the idea is to really kind of take that leap, to commit to it, and then do something transformational. That's our ultimate goal. Now, does everybody do that? Of course not. But that's what we want to see happen. This is a graph that I share with faculty. Most of you will be able to understand all the words on the outside. There are a couple of words here that don't make sense to you. TILT, which is my area, formerly my area, which is basically the Teaching and Learning Technology group. Okay? And then OIE is institutional research. So the folks that collect data at the institutional level and help us do assessment here. But we share with faculty this graphic, letting them know a couple of things. One, there's a lot of people around the campus that want you to be successful with this. A lot of people. There's a lot of resources going into it in terms of time, energy, money. Everybody wants you to be successful. That means that when something happens to you, like you change your course or you get reassigned to a different area or whatever happens, you leave the campus, because that's happened as well, you need to let us know like right away because it impacts all those people out there. And this also points to, internally for us, and what I'm going to share with you, the amount of communication that has to happen frequently and very tightly. So all these people have some vested interest in the courses that are being offered, the students who are impacted, demand for services. So anything that happens with the program, everybody in that circle needs to know. It's a lot of people. And it's not a normal group of people that, in terms of working every day together. But this project has brought administrators and staff together around making sure that we know what's going on with each other here. Have we been great at this? Great, I don't know. Good, yes. Work to do, absolutely. But the graphic indicates to lots of people the need for that tight communication. I want to share with you a video. This is Yolanda Daub, who teaches Spanish. And this was what she was going to do for her course, and actually what she ended up doing. Or not. Is it? Yeah, it is. Thank you.
Creativa, colaborativa. Español 129 trata el tema de la cultura mexicana y el tablet nos ayuda a mejor conectar con la materia. No reemplaza para nada el contacto en vivo, sino que lo complementa para enriquecer el curso. He reestructurado la clase con 4 descriptores en mente: conveniente, creativa, colaborativa y dinámica. Por ejemplo, en vez de comprar libros, los estudiantes leerán las lecturas en línea o como documentos breves en nuestra página de Blackboard o como enlaces a sitios web. En vez de imprimir sus ensayos y gastarlos en papel, usarán el tablet para escribir y entregarlos. Es más, también se los devuelvo electrónicamente con mis comentarios. Y para las actividades culturales que exploran en la comunidad, ya tendrán la flexibilidad de entregarme su análisis en forma de video. También he preparado foros en línea para darles la oportunidad de compartir y comentar información de interés que encuentran por su propia cuenta en periódicos sobre la cultura mexicana. Eso es aparte de las conversaciones y la participación activa dentro de la sala de clase, que seguirán siendo imprescindibles. En clase, usaremos aplicaciones de pizarrón electrónica para analizar los textos en grupo y colaborar en la preparación de guías de estudio, ya que esas aplicaciones nos permiten usar nuestros tablets para apuntar un documento.
So here's the today's meet link again. So one of the things that we designed in our work with faculty is literally what happened just now. There are subtitles to that video that was muted, right? We tried to put ourselves as developers as an instructor. Not everything was going to work. And then how do you respond to that, right? And we put faculty in the position of being students and saying, okay, now I want you to do something completely foreign to you, right? And what kind of process? How long did that take to have happen? What did you have to explain? And then upon reflection, we would share those stories, right? So one of the things that I think in terms of capacity building that's really key is not necessarily just the content. So if I'm a history major, there's some history stuff I need to know, some skill sets I need to have. What this program allows is to develop skill sets in other areas that I would say are meta skill sets, right? How do you creatively problem solve on your feet? How do you react and respond to adversity on the spot? And as faculty, if you can model that to students and maybe even reflect back on it for students, that's a wonderful value add and something that we don't do a lot of. So those are the kinds of things that we try to work with faculty in terms of what do you want to share with students in terms of, how do you feel about not being successful at something and being lifelong learners, which is what we say we want our students to do, but we have to do it ourselves as faculty as well. So there's a lot of things, I think, that kind of come out of this experience for faculty and for students that are beneficial beyond the content of the particular course. Okay. For the student experience, I'll let you read those things. I want to highlight a couple of things here. Our president, as you might imagine, is very dedicated to this program. And he is a very persuasive individual when it comes to fundraising. So he was able to garner outside resources from our university foundation to be able to support the student scholarships. Is the $500 scholarship sustainable when we talk about 23,000 students? Probably not. But we also know that more and more of our students are coming with devices already, so they don't need to purchase one necessarily. And we also believe that over time, once you get the device, it may be 3 or 4 years before you actually need to upgrade. Now that assumes everything kind of goes lockstep in terms of technology, and we know that that's not going to be the case. There's going to be some other game changer, right? I mean, the iPad is how old now? 6 years at the outside, maybe 5 years, and already look at how much things have changed. So we know that's not sustainable, but it is getting us started and getting us going in the right direction. A quick thing, I'll show you a picture about the Discovery Hub, which is a kind of our help area on the first floor of the library. But the 1 hour device orientations, when we first started last fall, we had the bookstore for students who purchased a device from the bookstore, go pick it up at the bookstore, and then encourage them to go to this orientation so we can get them set up on email, their Google Apps, all that kind of stuff, right? So they're ready to go the first day of class. Well, that was in a different location. So as you might imagine, between the bookstore and the orientation place, there was a lot of people not going, right? And that created really problems for us, for our faculty, for the first couple of weeks, because we're trying to get students up to speed, and faculty are wanting to go. So that was a real problem for us. So we solved that in the spring, and we'll do it again in the fall, by having students pick up their devices if they buy from the bookstore at the place where they get the orientation. So we had better success in the spring, many fewer problems in terms of the technical things related to the use of the devices in the classroom, and we anticipate that we'll mitigate a lot of things like that this fall with many more students. The other thing we're doing is we're packaging basically a student onboarding tutorial set. So short videos about how to do the things they need to get done to be ready for their first day of class. So it shouldn't take that long for them to do, but it is something that we can put in our LMS and know that people are actually doing it as opposed to just hoping that they actually do it. So here's not the most flattering picture of our president, President Castro, but this is the Discovery Hub. This is the first floor of the library, so literally millions of patrons see this every year. And it's open to anybody who wants to come, primarily geared towards students, primarily geared towards Discovery or the tablet initiative, but anybody can go and ask any question they want. And in fact, our manager for the Discovery Hub has done a really nice job of reaching out to the community and hosting seminars for just community members in terms of things like how to use Skype to talk to distant loved ones, right? How to use different apps for collaboration work, how to use photo apps to help you take better pictures or archive better. So all kinds of things happen at the hub. It is kind of a central place where people know to go to get help. So from a student perspective and a faculty perspective, I'll show you another clip. And this is John Bainan. And John, when he first became part of the program, was a little bit skeptical, and now he's
you could create a
quite
Google
the
site
evangelist
for your project, or you could create some other kind of a website. Part of the Google Apps that you already have access to as a student here at Fresno State. What we're doing today is we're reading the importance of being earnest, and then the students are creating annotations, little explanations of maybe difficult to understand passages or words that were used differently in the late 19th century than they're being used today.
I'm one of those people that really like a pencil and a paper and all those kinds of things, so doing this was definitely a new experience, but I felt like technology is taking over so much that I really wanted to kind of get myself more involved with it because it is advancing, and us as students need to advance with it.
They can circle words, they can put stars next to words, they can underline passages, they can highlight, they can type some notes into the margins if they like. So we started out doing that because that, I thought, replicated the experience of reading a book and creating notes in a regular textbook.
You know, the tablet has really made us all engaged a lot more than I think we would have.
I think one place where I've really begun to rethink my curriculum is the level of what I consider to be participation in the classroom.
You know, most of the time in class you sit down and you kind of stay to yourself, unless you have to do a group project, then obviously you have to interact with others. But it's really made a way to, again, where we can access the same thing. We kind of see each other's ideas, and we get to give feedback to each other.
I have my students tweet ideas, questions to the Twitter sphere using the hashtag ENGL31, which is for this class. And then the students can either respond to one another or I can respond to them, and I find that that's a really useful way.
I didn't think we could really use social media in more of an academic type setting, but we do. If we have questions, if we have concerns, anything of that nature, we'll put our hashtag on our tweet. It goes out to everyone that's in our class and everyone's able to access it. So a lot of people use it for papers. If we need our paper revised, put the hashtag on it, someone will say, hey, yeah, I'm available, email it to me.
For this particular assignment today, they've actually already tweeted some of their annotations to Twitter, so I'll be able to search for those very easily.
Okay, just again, one way to use the device both in class and outside of class. And the faculty that were most successful were faculty who leveraged the device and the technology in both directions. So both the in-class experience was changed and the out-of-class experience was changed. So again, something to pay attention to in terms of developing this as we move forward. So again, today's meet link. Somebody asked for a copy of the presentation. I'll put the presentation in the resources folder for this presentation, as well as the links for the videos here. So infrastructure. So obviously we can't do this stuff without helping the infrastructure out, right? So fortunately for us, some of this was already on the boards. The program just accelerated the implementation phase. So we have access points in the Discovery classrooms to make sure we can handle the traffic. If we're going to have faculty and students doing lots of things on the web, we better make sure we have that supported. And so we did a lot of work there. We also added untethering options. So we have Apple TV, and we have a Miracast. For this year, we have a Miracast dongle that will be available in all the Discovery classrooms. So whatever the faculty member has, whatever the students are using, they'll be able to present wirelessly through our projection system. So again, that's something that's new for Discovery. Again, one of the downsides of having cross-platform is to have these two solutions, right? We hear, talking with vendors, there's the magic bullet solution out there, but the ones that we've seen so far are very expensive. And for $300 in terms of hardware, this is a much more flexible way to go. So this is the direction we headed. And it was available when we needed it. So outcome stuff. So again, we're trying to get to outcomes. What are we looking at? So this is a very early work that we're doing. We're only a year into the program. We have most of our data from the fall semester, which was most of our students last year, some from the spring. But here are some early results in terms of satisfaction rates, which is pretty good. I'm most excited about the faculty satisfaction rate because faculty can be a tough group on this kind of stuff. So to have that 80+ satisfaction rate amongst faculty, I think is a real win for us. We did not focus on the development of instructional materials. So we didn't focus on faculty developing e-text, interactive text, any of that kind of stuff, but the faculty on their own decided that was something they wanted to focus on. So they did. And they've used any number of resources that resulted in over a 50% reduction in the cost of instructional materials for Discovery courses compared to the same course the prior year. That's, again, a significant win. Now, as you know in the room, not everybody knows this, but you know in the room that you don't have to have a tablet to do this stuff, right? But if a mobile initiative is going to spur that on, perfect. Everybody wins, right? So I'm not going to shy away from it at all, but understand that it doesn't have to have you don't have to have a tablet program to make this work. Student learning outcomes. So we have some results now from courses. I have a whole diatribe on grades and whether that's a good indicator of student learning. I'll spare you that, but just understand that grades may not be the best indicator of student learning across the board, okay? And you probably know that. But here are some things that we see in terms of tablet versus the same course, non-tablet, for the same instructor, the same semester. So we do see some increases here in terms of student learning outcomes based on those particular metrics. The first year experience program, we have 100 students who are all first generation, all need math remediation, all need English remediation, all are Pell Grant eligible. So if you stack all those things together, this is a group of students that is very resilient by just being at the university, but in terms of the statistical rate, very challenged. So what we see here is their success rate in an English composition course, which is one of the things that they struggle with, increases with the tablets versus not the tablets. And virtually all of them think it's a good idea for students to have access to these devices for academic purposes. So the key there is for academic purposes, right? And being able to train students as well as faculty to use the things for academic purposes, and that is a challenge in and of itself. So side benefits, I mentioned some of this already, but really very highly visible technical support, which is really critical, and I think many of us struggle with, when we hear faculty or students don't know where the help desk is, breaks our heart, but that's just the reality. So this helped us bring all of that stuff to the fore for the entire campus, and which is, I think, is very, very helpful. So lessons. I mentioned the communication piece earlier, the need for really tight communication. The cross-platform issue can be frustrating, but I still believe it was the right way to go, and I think that will be borne out as we move forward, and still people, I think, resonate with that in terms of the marketplace in general. We had a group of folks from the campus community decide which devices the bookstore would sell to students. So we couldn't sell everything, right? But we selected some things. And the first semester, we selected an Android device that was a poor decision. It wasn't the quality that we needed. There were some known issues with it, but it was inexpensive. So basically, with a $500 grant, it was free to the student. We were too cost conscious because the device just simply didn't work very well for the students and therefore the faculty or for the program. So if that's where the road you're headed, be very careful about what devices you select, and of course value trumps cost sometimes. Keeping current, I mentioned this earlier with the apps and with platforms, it's really a challenge. Our goal for our team is to help faculty manage that as best we can. Scanning the environment, getting ahead of changes, letting them know what's coming, if we can predict it, and then helping them move through the next level of change for apps. So I mentioned this already, what's next for this fall. And I hesitate to click this, but I will. Double it again for next year. We hope that we can do this. I think our faculty are ready to do this. I think our students are ready to do this. We need to have the infrastructure set to do this at this scale, and we also have to have the back-end support or the front-end support for students in terms of money to make sure that we can make this work for everybody. So it's going to be a challenge. Let me open it up for Q&A. We have just a couple of minutes left. But yes, please. A lot of questions. I'll hang out afterwards. I also have cards up here if you want to talk more. Software licensing, some of it is managed centrally, so like the Linda license is managed centrally, the LMS obviously is. All the apps are mostly free to students, but we have a couple that the university supports, so Nearpod, we have a semi-site license for that, and some other things. So if we have enough faculty who want to use it, we'll support it financially and then with training. But those are limited sets of apps. We do not have a device management solution. The devices, it's a really good question. Even for faculty, we don't have a solution. But for students, because they're their devices, we've just not gone down that road. Having both iOS devices, Windows devices, and Android devices is the cross-platform I'm talking about. So students could have any of those in their hands, and that would be okay with us. It's not quite BYOD because we have recommended specifications for the device you want to bring. So front and rear facing cameras is one of those things. Screen real estate is another one. So those are things that I think will evolve over time. So it's not quite BYOD yet, but we're headed down that road. Yeah.
Along those lines, how granular does that go? To student or for department, college, say college?
Really good question. Right now it's to the student, although we have some class level things. We were not able to get ahead of it enough in order to have the college level discussion. That would be my preference, is that the college would say, for our students, we want them to have access to these kinds of resources. And then as you come in as a freshman, you would get the appropriate device and move forward. But we haven't had that conversation yet. Yes. Yes. That's a really good question. So for faculty learning communities, how do we schedule that? And for the summer institutes, how do we schedule that? So it's the same group of people going through everything. We have dialed back on the faculty learning communities with the second cohort because there's simply just fewer decisions to make. But we still have them. We just pull their course schedules, and then we have one of our admins find the time to make it work. And then for the summer institutes, it's basically we schedule it and say, if you can't make it, we'll make other arrangements for you, but usually it's a time frame when people are free. So right after the semester ends for us. Okay. All right, I'm getting it's time, which it is time. I'll stick around afterwards. I have my cards up here. Thank you very much for attending. I hope you got something out of it. Thanks.